Angola has joined the list of African countries who've legalized same-sex marriages. Last week, 48 members of parliament voted to revise a 2019 law that criminalized same-sex relations, whilst 24 voted against and 25 abstained. To become law, the Senate also needs to approve the proposal. The reform has been hailed by human rights activists who've been pushing for equal rights for the lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender LGBT community in Angola and other African countries. Social justice activist Imanni Da Silva is in Luanda in Angola, and she joins us now to share some thoughts on the annulment of the old laws. She joins us via Zoom. Imanni, thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right, talk to me about what it means to have this law repealed, this old archaic law, and Angola coming into the modern age, as some might put it.
My goodness, it's a huge achievement. I mean, we thought that it would take much longer for such thing to happen. But it just shows that, the government finally recognizes that there is an LGBT community, recognizes that, just like any other citizen, we should be acknowledged and we have the same rights, and we need to be heard and protected most of all. So it's an amazing achievement for us. We are very pleased.
What do you think has changed? What is happening in the community? Has this been lobbying, activism, or is it a general change in attitudes in society?
Well, I mean, compared to about 5 years ago, we can still notice some change, because there is more LGBT people into the mainstream. So somehow people started to look towards us in a different way. There is still some old views, misconceptions regarding LGBT people. Some people still believe that we are being possessed by demons. Some people still believe that we are mentally ill. But I think it's a process. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is to really re-educate society as a whole. And this law simply shows society that, regarding of your faith, regarding of your belief, everybody's different, everybody's unique, and everybody deserves respect and the same opportunities.
If we just take a look at the voting pattern, 48 members voted for the change, 24 against, and 25 abstained, which means 49 people didn't vote for this against the 48, which means there's still quite a lot of people perhaps who are not comfortable with what's happening, are not comfortable with this change.
Exactly, and it's just about what I've just said. People, especially because of people still use religious views to attack us somehow, and they can't even listen, and they're not open to any sort of information that will make them change their mind. But I mean, that's our fear somehow, that in the government, we always thought there would be 50-50 of people that want to, want us to push forward, and some people that want to stop us moving forward. But I think that I'm very positive. We are all very positive. I think it's just about time. And it's a matter of time that for us to achieve even more, even though there is no specific laws created thinking about transgender people, for example. But the simple fact that, this law embraces, same-sex relationships is just the same. We feel protected the same way. And we are quite sure that as long as we can prove, we can take people to justice. And I think that from now on, people will think more than twice before they discriminate, because they not only discriminalized it, whoever discriminates or stop us from getting a job because of sexual orientation, you can get up to 2 years in jail for that. So, that's pretty scary to some of these people that still believe that we don't belong in society.
All right. So homosexuality, LGBT people, it's been decriminalized, but also on top of that, persecution has been criminalized, which is great news. Give us a sense of what life was like before this law. I mean, you mentioned jobs. Are you saying that it was difficult to get employed if you were openly homosexual?
I mean, I know friends of mine who have been bullied at work. Some people couldn't get a job if people would notice somehow if they were gay or lesbian. It's even harder for transgender people. I mean, it's almost impossible to get a job. I mean, most transgender people, they have to, do their own thing. They own like small businesses. Majority of transgender women are sex workers. But there is a lot of discrimination in the workplace. There is quite a few people who were able to get a job, but then they started to face some sort of discrimination at the workplace. So that kind of gives us hope, because I think that now, we feel protected, and I think that now justice will be able to protect us. Before it was a bit difficult to not only prove, but even to go forward, because a lot of lawyers, for example, they wouldn't take a case where homophobia. I mean, even the word homophobia was not used by lawyers or anything like that. So I think it's quite something. Before, I mean, let's just point this out. I think it's very important for people to know that Angola, it's an independent country since 1975. And since then, never had the interest of criminalizing same-sex relationships. This is just something that, it was a law that it was from colonial times. It was, if I'm not wrong, the late 1800s. So it's something that the government today recognized that was useless to keep something that they didn't have any interest in using. And also because it would go against what our constitution defends, that no citizen should face any sort of discrimination.
All right. We're talking about LGBT, and a lot of people kind of have started to know what that means. But there's an expanded definition, LGBTQI, queer and intersex on top of that. Most times the debate is about gay, lesbian, and maybe even bisexual, hardly ever the others. Is this something that is becoming more and more part of the conversation, particularly in a country like yours, Angola?
We always, every single time we have the chance, we mention it. And the response is, what does it all this mean? And, we feel that it's part of our duty to inform people about what it means and all the differences about the sexual orientation, as well as gender identity diversity. And this is something that people, slowly should becoming aware. They are learning, especially the young ones. They're curious. I mean, they started debating in schools, among themselves. There are some activists who are still studying. So they also are contributing somehow, sharing their own experience without any sort of, shame or anything like that. So, and I also, we were so happy about this outcome that I just decided to call all the activists and propose that we would call this day the National Pride Day. So far, everybody has agreed, so it's official.
All right, very exciting news. Great to hear. All right, let's talk a little bit about, in many parts of the world, the legislation is there and the protections are there by law, but sometimes you still see a lot of violence, particularly violence against lesbian women by men, homosexual men who are also attacked by homophobes. Has that been something that you've seen in Angola and something that you fear that even though you've got these laws in place, you may still experience?
We have experienced a lot. I mean, one of the reasons why this sort of violence, it's not, people don't face it, it's not out there. It's because most of the violence, I dare to say that is domestic violence. There is a lot of young LGBT people that suffer, violence at home. A lot of them, obviously, they're very young. They still depend on their parents. And it's very difficult for us even to assist them, because even to take them to the police, for example, I mean, it's a challenge for them because we're talking about families. So it's a very sensitive matter. We still also, gay men and transgender women are the biggest targets. I'm not saying the others aren't, but obviously because it's a very sexist society. So anything that will be looked at as as an offense to masculinity, for example, it's taken that way. And some cases, a lot of cases actually, of violence from the police, which is even harder for us to tackle, because once you get there and once they are aware that the persecutors were the police, they don't care. They just don't move. The cases don't move forward. So we really hope that with this change, people will be more aware, that there is a price to pay for this sort of crime.
Do you hope that this might help create more change in other countries on the continent that are still perhaps living in the past?
Oh my God, I've been questioned this a lot, and I always say that it's even more difficult because the same way that Angola never had the interest in directly criminalize same-sex relationships, some African countries, or if not most of them, do have the interest, and they have, created laws that do criminalize it. So to go the other way around, I mean, it's a huge challenge. And I think that it's something that, for example, Angolan government should start questioning the other countries, and exchange experiences, really. It might take longer, much longer for something like that to happen in other countries. But we do hope that, in the future, the whole continent will be able to, LGBT people will be able to be free and live their lives the way they want to.
All right, and that's where we'll leave it. And well done, and congratulations on this new era and this new day. And we wish you all the best. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Muito obrigado. Adeus.
Adeus.
All right, so that's Imanni Da Silva talking to us about a victory for the community in Angola. It's decriminalized into same-sex relationships, and in fact has gone further, and there is laws now punishing people who are homophobic.